All right. Well, hey, everybody. It's good to be back with you. This is our second webinar for the consultants working on your skill development so that you'll be able to complete your certification and work effectively with your coach. Now, just so we're clear, we pre-recorded this webinar, and so you won't be able to actively interact, but hopefully what will happen is we do have a few folks, and at the end of the webinar, we'll open it up. But more importantly, what we're going to do is role play through what you're going to experience when you're working with your coach to master your consulting skills. Now, just a reminder, what we want you to be able to do by the end of your certification is really be good at assessing where the person is or the group is that you're trying to help. Recognize with them the value and the need for them to have some changing habits and behaviors, and you help them see it, but they have to get that it's them and the situation that needs to be addressed. You're not going to fix it. You help them identify what their choices are, and if they don't see it as a choice, and it's your decision about what should be worked on, less likely to be successul. So you want them not only to identify what they're, when they're stressed, we keep it to this or this, either or, but we could have up to 5 if somebody's doing pretty well, and maybe 8 if you recognize them as a sapphire. But then what we want to do is help them get organized. So yeah, they have a choice to make, but then they have to figure out what to do to actually make that choice happen and what they're going to need to start with. How do they initiate? We want to help them figure out, are you making progress? And so we want to make sure things are in bite-size or little pieces so that they can see that things are changing, that they're looking better than they were looking before. And then we want them to know when they're done. Okay, so you're finished with that, so how's it feeling? Let go of where you were and move on to the next step, and to hopefully see things a little differently and to do something different about it as they're moving forward. So that's your role and your goal. And to do that, you need to be curious. You need to be willing to make mistakes, but admit them when you make them and learn from them. You want to have self-awareness, but also be self-assured. I mean, you don't want to keep apologizing for yourself, but you do want to say, I'm sorry I made you angry. That wasn't what I was trying to do. I'm sorry that happened. Sounds like what happened there was not what either of us were anticipating. You want to make sure that you are really paying attention to how they're doing emotionally, not just intellectually, but what you're hearing back or what you're feeling from them. Be able to recognize any gem that you see, and particularly when you're a consultant, it's important to notice when people are shifting gem states, because that's often when there's a lot of tension and distress, whether it's the person you're trying to help, yourself, or the people in the situation. And you need to be equally committed to both what we're trying to do and where people want to end up, and realize you can't want it more than they do. But help them be aware of those things. And we want to have an agenda. We should always have an agenda, but we have to be willing to be flexible with our agenda, and we don't necessarily lay it out there as our agenda. We try to figure out what their agenda is and figure out how to balance these things so that we encourage, but we also hold people accountable. And this all sounds sort of complicated, and frankly it is. It's one of the most complicated things you can do, but you're going to use a variety of strategies and techniques. The 6 pieces of the puzzle, which hopefully you've put out in front of you, because we always want to be looking at those and remembering that 3 of them are theirs and 3 of them are ours. We want to make assessments. In other words, we want to figure things out, not assume things. We use supportive communication. We gather information from multiple sources if possible, or help the person see things, that there are different ways of getting things. We use lots of active listening and responsive behaviors. We use go with the flow. We want to connect, reflect, and then redirect. And we use person-centered approaches to everything, and PPA in all communications. And when possible, recognize what is possible, not what is not possible. So we use a GEMS kind of model. So in keeping with that, Beth, it's Teepa. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing well.
Yeah. Well, it's been a while since we talked.
It has, yeah. It's been
Yeah. So last time we got together, we talked about John Marcus, the physician that you guys were struggling with a little bit.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about what's happened since the last time we talked. We talked about really trying to find out about the pieces of the puzzle. So tell me a little bit of what kind of things you were able to find out.
I was able to find out a little bit more about his background and his professional and personal life.
Okay.
So
tell me about it.
Yeah. So he in terms of his work life, he got up and went to work right away early in the morning. And he didn't work later in the afternoon. He was kind of that 6:30 to 3:30 office.
Okay. Sort of a first shift guy.
Yeah, very first shift kind of guy.
So if you had to guess his circadian rhythm, you know, how he had high energy and when he starts to like really dip low, do you think he's an early bird or a night owl or a deer? What's your sense of him?
Well, I don't know about the deer, but if just going off of what he was working, I think he would at least start, because you'd mentioned he might change. But if his work was 6:30 to 3:30, my guess is if he was still a little earlier in the disease, my guess is he's a real morning guy.
Yeah, and so by about early afternoon, what kind of things are we seeing that are consistent with that finding?
That he's done.
That's done.
Yeah, that's where he's having the troubles. Right around dinner, there's expectations put on him to be nice and play well with others, and that's hard.
He's about done with that.
Yeah.
And so what else do you know about him personally and history-wise that's going to make it be difficult for people to try to tell him what to do or get him to do things? What else do you think is maybe playing into that?
Yeah, well, you know, he's a physician. And so he was in charge, and people went to him for answers.
So who was he around a lot during the day?
Well, either his patients or at the med school. He was a professor at the med school. So my guess is he was always the one that had answers for him, would be my guess.
Okay, so even nurses and nurses' aides?
Yeah, my guess is he's probably able to see who are the nurses here.
Yep, and so he could maybe still visually recognize people who are the nurses and the aides?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, what the rest of us are is probably pretty confusing though.
So, but if you were around him and you had a uniform on of some sort, do you think he's going to take well to being told what to do or asked to do?
No, probably the opposite. He's probably used
to
telling
the opposite.
Yeah.
So we know that. What else do we know about, have you found out anything more about either his medical or sensory or psychiatric or what he's eating and drinking and how he's fueling himself up?
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes actually. So basically in terms of medical, he has hypertension. And
he has some diabetes too, right?
Yes, he does. So I'm wondering if he's got some...
His prostate is not working so well.
So it's the thirst combined with the maybe some problems letting that out. So that's got two things that are kind of pushing back and forth at each other, causing him some discomfort. Okay,
and when you're diabetic and you're relatively in the earlier stages and your amygdala's sort of busy, what kind of things would you anticipate he's going to want to eat that wouldn't necessarily be the best for him?
He's going to drink those sweets and those probably a lot of sugar in his coffee.
What kind of things did he like to do in the early evening that were related to sugar related things?
Wine.
Alcohol. Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, he has this lifestyle that you kind of like picture a physician, important physician to have in terms of his desires. So I could see the wine tasting being a real problem with his diabetes.
Yeah, so we have some things that we know. And where do you see the people around him? Where is the greatest conflict coming in? Are you noticing?
messing with him, messing with the things that he knows to be sure. His time, his place, his schedule, telling him to do things is pretty much just a stop. He gets very argumentative. Talking to staff, if they tell him to take some medication, it's just straight up refusals.
Okay. So I'm going to take you back to that circadian rhythm kind of idea. And night owls, or excuse me, early birds, which is the kind of thing that you said he's either an early bird or you're not sure about the deer. The difference between an early bird and a deer is that early birds, once they're sort of cooked, they just want to go to the nest and settle in for the night. And deer have a 2-period time where they have a very active early morning and then they need to get away, chill out, settle down, recharge. And then they have an active period in the evening that tends to be fairly social and fairly active. And then they settle in for the night. But they have like what's called a diurnal pattern. And if you look at his history, do you see any of that in him, or do you see him more as an early bird only?
That really resonates. I hadn't thought of that, but it sounds like he was, some things we've talked about before is whether or not somebody's an extrovert or an introvert. I hadn't really thought about that before. And he had a very active social life. He went and did things, but they were pretty passive. Like, he would go to jazz or bluegrass concerts, so he's around people and he interacts, he's enjoying himself. Wine tastings, collecting butterflies and gardening, and it's different than what he did in the day. He had to have all the answers, very active, but then in the evening he's got stuff going on.
Yeah. So if you try, so do you think if you try to get him to just be quiet and not do stuff or go to his room or stay away from people, that's going to work so well?
No, he's not that tired.
He's not that type. He's not a loner. He just likes to be alone in a crowd a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's used to having a partner, too, up until his wife died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so he's sort of a one-on-one guy in a group.
Yeah, mostly, like theater is. You're surrounded by people, but you don't have, the spotlight isn't on you.
Okay, so one of the things that he's getting in trouble with staff is, and I think that's a legitimate way of saying is staff are struggling with how to keep him out of other people's rooms, how to keep him from getting himself in trouble in the afternoon, and what to do with him. He doesn't like to do the things that are being offered. And that creates lots of tension and distress because he really isn't fitting in. The other thing I would say is the other piece is what do you think? And it's not so much the social stuff. What's the other stuff that's getting in his way here? Like, and I'm highlighting sort of with my marker an area to look on the screen.
Oh, it's actually just showing up as PAC consultant.
Oh, dear. Okay. I don't know why. Okay.
The conversation was similar.
Okay. Can you see it now?
No, I just got really big on my own screen. There we go.
You got it?
Yep.
So look down here. In these two things, you've identified, look down here on this section and sort of tell me what you're noticing there. And see if you actually agree with that after spending some time.
Oh, yeah, the staff and report is kind of walking around behind staff, resting in an armchair that looks like a patio. Tells people that he needs to go home and check on his wife. So he's becoming more and more restless. This sounds like it's the later afternoon stuff. Yeah,
so, and he wants to talk. Sometimes it helps to talk to his daughter, sometimes it doesn't. What's that telling you about where he is, the environment where he is, and where he thinks he needs to be?
So he's done with that place, and something's not fitting.
Okay.
So I wonder if it's the end of the day thing.
Yeah, so do you think it's, let's look at the 4 F's. Do you think the environment feels friendly and familiar and functional and forgiving to him right now?
No, I think it's unfamiliar at that point. It's feeling more and more
Okay.
unfamiliar. Because if he's looking for his wife or wanting to talk to his wife,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes his daughters help, but sometimes they don't, my guess is something is feeling more and more unfamiliar.
Uh-huh. So he's looking for getting in the garden or do some work. So it sounds like maybe not only that, he's looking for a function that our current setup isn't giving him.
Yeah.
He has something he wants
Yeah,
to do, and he can't figure out how to do it where he is.
No, and so what do we do at that time when in the afternoon he's looking like if it's in his mind that he goes home at that time and should be going from relatively familiar of the office, but I shouldn't be here anymore, and now I should be going home calling for his wife. I mean, you know, he's there, he's at the place. What do we do with him?
Yeah. And so in the evening then he comes back after a couple hours, he's ready to eat dinner, but he still hasn't settled because he's got all this stuff going on, added to which, what do you think might be going on with his bladder and his blood sugars and all that by now?
Oh, he's all off at that point.
Okay,
Yeah.
good,
Yeah,
good.
he's got discomfort, physical discomfort then.
Yeah, so now, okay, so what are some options about what we might want to think about doing at this point? You've identified, what are your two major areas that you're identifying that might benefit from some shifts, some change? So tell me your two options you're thinking about right now.
So two options, I mean, are kind of like either stay and engage him or take him off the unit.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't as clear as I should have been, and that's my bad. Let's look at the two areas where we have concerns with what he's doing and what he's trying to get and what we're giving him.
Like his own needs or?
Yeah, so with one of them, he needs to feel like the
boss.
The boss, and we're struggling with that a little bit, how to do that so that we are actually in charge, but he feels like he has control in his day, in his work place. And then what's the other then piece that he's struggling a lot with? So are we. We're trying to figure out how to help.
I'm not totally following you. So basically, are you talking about, go ahead. Are you talking about like his own personal, so let me see this right. You said his need to be in charge and have
His work.
Okay, his work, as opposed to, or what? What do you mean? Like,
let's look at look at your 6 pieces of your puzzle. So one of them is John and who he's been and who he is and his relationship to people. Okay, so that's an area of not working very well.
Yeah.
And that's true across the board, whether it's trying to get him to come to dinner or trying to get him not to go in somebody's room or trying to get him to settle down or talk to his daughter or whatever it is. Bossiness is not a good thing for John.
Yes.
And what should he do during the day so he feels like he's in charge and he has a job and so he'll settle during the day. But let's look at the pieces of the puzzle and see where else there's this big issue that we're struggling with a little bit for John. And John's struggling with.
Well, probably, God, I can see it all over. We haven't, where do we begin?
Let's take a step back and see if you can see a big picture of things. Because you're right, it is all over, but what's the problem? Yeah. One was him being in charge and in control.
Uh-huh. And then that shift, I can see, the one that jumps out is the time.
Transitions.
Yes. Yeah, so he's got to transition from what he thinks is familiar enough during the day that suddenly doesn't fit anymore while he should be wrapping up and heading home.
Yeah. So it's a combination of maybe time use, how he's using his time, how he recharges his batteries, his energy, and the environment and the people.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other piece is transitions for John are really a challenge because he doesn't know how to get from this to that and back to this easily, and we're really struggling with how to support that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know we can't change John easily.
Yeah, no, we can't.
Yeah. Okay, so where do you see the possibilities of working? Who could we work with, and what could we do with them to give them some new ways of trying to help John and themselves to get out of the box that they're in, related to John and who he is and how we interact with him, and giving him that sense of control, and then how we're going to transition John from work to home to social with less distress.
So the other two things I'm looking at then, like you said, are the people or the environment. So either we could come up with a way that makes it feel like there's a transition so he can feel the same rhythm he had before, either what we do as individuals or the environment.
What about time schedule?
Well, I was thinking like along those times, if we know his time was transition points, and if the transition point naturally falls right around.
Okay, so what time did he get off work?
Oh, right before dinner. Right before, it'd be 3:30.
Uh-huh. So when do you think it's ramping up because he's not getting his need met? What's the unmet need that you see?
The unmet need that I see is that he has
What emotion are you seeing? Go to your 5 emotions. What emotion are you seeing first?
It's like he's agitated. He's a little bit.
But go to your left hand.
Okay.
And close your thumb over top of everything.
Okay.
What's the first emotion?
Anger.
Okay, and then you remove that. Why are you doing this?
It's not sad.
Sad. He's not sad. Middle finger standing up by itself without a partner.
Not maybe alone.
Alone.
Yeah.
All alone.
He is.
And he's missing people that should be with him during this. Who should be with him. This next one, do you see him hunkered down and scared?
No, but I think covered by anger, his frustration.
There you go. Okay, I like that. And what about the last little finger? What's that one? The one we always miss?
The bored. I mean, that's
He's
really
bored. He's done with work. What the hell? You know, this is ridiculous. I've got to get home. Come on.
Yeah.
So we see some emotion here, but let's go to the other side, because we don't want to, this may just be emotional, so we're going to check that out, but as long as we're here, let's look at the other side. What are your 5 signals that we want to think about might be playing into this?
Okay, so hunger or thirst.
Good, excellent.
Okay. He's either tired or revved up. He's kind of both, isn't he?
Uh-huh, yeah.
So he's a little
in the wrong
tired.
place at the wrong time, and he wants to transition, but he can't figure out how to do it, and we're not helping.
Yeah, he's revved up to do something else.
Uh-huh, good, good. What about that middle finger?
Elimination. This is always going to be an issue for him.
Good,
His
good. Excellent. And next?
Uncomfortable. That one this one causes this one. And he's also uncomfortable because of his situation and his energy issues.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, and what about this little finger?
You know, I can always assume there's a little bit of pain.
What kind of emotional pain is John feeling, possibly?
Oh, just that lack of identity, that it was so strong his whole life.
Can he find his wife?
No, he can't find anything.
Can he find his rhododendron?
No. He can't find his wine. He can't find his jazz.
Yeah, yeah. So there's emotional pain. What about potential physical pain? Is there some possible?
Yeah, if he's got, from anything with his diabetes, he could have some
He's been on his feet a good bit. Could he have a neuropathy in his hands and his feet, some tingling, some burning?
Would that come more at the end of the day after he spent the day walking around?
Bingo.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I love what you're doing. So now, who and what are we going to try to work with? So let's look at our puzzle, and let's now take that step back. Who is your first person that you're going to want to try to do some work with? And first, who are you going to try to work with? Who have you got on your list of possibles?
In terms of staff or family?
I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, so we've got...
You have staff or family or combination.
Okay, so I guess the easiest thing is try to address, because he doesn't have any diagnoses or doesn't describe pain as an issue. I'm wondering if that's maybe the easiest first thing to sort of chip away at. If we're going to start somewhere, do we look...
I'm going to pause you.
Okay.
You just described to me either staff or family, and that we know he has emotional pain. We know he gets angry, and he's probably a combination of alone, bored, with maybe a little fear thrown in.
I wanted to address it all. All right, where do we start?
Because you want to address it all.
Okay, so
tell me who. I want you to think about the who's involved here, not the what's, the who's.
I guess the who is the staff during the shift change time for him and for us.
Okay, so you identified you could either work with family, you could really concentrate on family, or you could concentrate on staff.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
Versus family and staff in combination. Tell me about that.
Well, because his wife has passed, and his daughter only visits about one time a week. So we could start to use her more strategically with staff, is what you're kind of getting
There's a
at.
possibility, because frequently, it sounds like at least once a week, when he gets really upset and demands to be able to call and talk to his daughter why he can't leave, he talks to his daughter and it calms down, and there are times sometimes that doesn't work, but frequently on occasion it does. So, I mean, she might be a resource. We could maybe tune her up a little bit and build in sort of that more.
I see, especially if she sounds like his wife by chance, and that's what he's hearing.
Okay, and if we gave her the right phrasing and cueing, and staff knew sort of the when to offer that, what could she provide that John's really struggling with?
Something,
not the first piece, but that second piece that we talked about.
Kind of blanking on what you mean by the second piece. I was thinking that she's familiar, though.
She is familiar. So we said he had a hard time shifting gears, transitioning.
Oh, so she could signal his transition from his work day
Okay,
to...
in combination with your staff. So
yeah.
That may help you with that transition thing.
Oh, so when you could actually help her figure out, we could help her figure out when she could call.
Okay, so one of the options that you might have is to work with her on her skills, and what would you do with staff related to theirs? Related to this topic, stay on this topic.
For help them to identify when he's changing, so help...
Pick up on early signs and signals of this environment isn't suiting me, or what's my routine and my habit that I want to sort of go with, and not wait too long.
Yeah, because they're really focused at that point on shift change itself, so they're trying to wrap up their tasks.
Yeah. So as you're working with staff, what might you really need to identify and help them identify, because he's a one-on-one guy, and alone is not good for John.
Yeah. So have them figure out themselves, so then it's their choice, the staff, who gets Dr. John right around shift change.
And what kind of things might they want to do with Dr. John? So you're right on the money, and I love what you're doing. So that's cool. So we know they're going to pick who, and what we want to help a problem solve and think about is what? Is the what.
Well, there's a lot of normal-looking things for Dr. John that happen at the end of shift change. There's paperwork. There's wrapping up a lot of loose ends. There's reporting.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe we could have them try, or they could come up with it. What are the things that he would see that normally happened that he could be a part of? You know, and I mean, if he's just on the unit we'd really have to be careful. It'd be kind of weird, but he could be there for report change, for shift change.
So hey, Doc, so would you mind coming with me? I've got to do a little paperwork. I could really use your input. Listen, let's go get a cup of coffee. Maybe while you're sitting, you could give me some input here. Because come on, we can go on out to the cafe and sit where it's quiet. Versus let's stay in the middle of the transition where everything's happening and it's a little crazy. Which do you think might be a better option?
Might be interesting to see him be able to go with one of the nurses as she's doing her recording, and she just talks with him and gets a gauge about whether or not he wants to hear what she's reporting.
And what about going to a different, quieter place? What might that allow him to feel like?
Oh, it's kind of like going from a common area of a lot of stimuli to a little more calm.
And you get something to drink and maybe something to nibble on that,
And that starts to meet his physical unmet needs.
Okay, and maybe we stop by the bathroom on our way because, oh, I got to go. Tell you what, why don't you go first and then I'll follow you behind.
Okay, so Beth, let's look at, as far as working with Dr. John and the staff, this transition thing seems to be something that really they both struggle with. So how would you want to work with all the staff, or how are you going to try to do that, do you think?
I think I'm going to make it easy on myself and talk to the staff that are interested in trying some things. And it may not be the nurses. It may be somebody else that's willing to take him and try it.
Right.
So try that.
So what do you want to try? Do you want to have like one option only, or do you want to give them a couple options? What do you think it might be best?
What I've learned from you guys is maybe have them come up with a couple of options.
Okay. Okay, great.
So they know it's not the first and only thing they can try.
Okay, but you want them to pick something within a range.
Okay, so to help them see the transition stuff, maybe a place to start. Okay, so then they could come up with that.
So how could you frame that so that they're seeing that staying on the unit doesn't seem to be working for Dr. John? It seems to aggravate it. And being around a lot of people when things are changing seems to make it better or make it worse?
Makes it worse.
So how are you going to frame this up or set this up so that when you're working with your staff, your transition staff, your first, second shift, you actually get them to go the direction that you really want them to go, but they get to pick within that range. It's sort of like, do you want to do this? Is that the question you want to ask?
Yeah, maybe what I would have done is just gone in before and said, I know you guys are having any trouble, let's give this a try. But now I might instead ask them what they're seeing during that shift change time.
Okay,
what
what are they noticing? What are they seeing? What are they hearing? What are they experiencing? What's working and what's not working? And then so it sounds like maybe we should try something different. Who's willing and interested? Which of you would be willing to step forward and try something?
And then they can choose.
Yeah, so, they can say, well, I tried. Okay, well, why don't two of you pick, and then we'll work on that a little bit, and the rest of you, what do we want them doing? Because we want them to own this, and if you let them step back and do nothing, what are they going to start wanting to do to the two who step forward?
Leave them alone as
or
not do anything at all.
That doesn't help. It's not doing anything. I mean, you wasted all your time. Yeah, the naysayers. So what you want to do is come up with a task for them to do. So your primary focus, and you want to really be thinking about this, your primary focus is the two people who said, I'll try it. But then what do you want to do with the rest of the group? You want to give them a job. So they stay engaged.
So their job would be to not only do their other stuff during shift change, but then to notice whether or not something's working, to be watching the people that are trying it.
And tell me how you've seen Dr. John's language, his physical behavior, Yeah.
So give him something specifically to look for. What's he saying? How's he moving? Where's he looking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, is it better? Is it worse? How do you notice it's best? So getting them to stay invested and involved in some way, so when you do your huddle up, your second check-in, that they just sort of dismiss the situation. It's not their problem. It's off their plate.
Yeah.
And how does that change everything? How does that change everything?
It keeps the ownership in the whole group and not on the shoulders of the people that are trying to deal with him in the moment.
What if one of those two people isn't on shift on Thursday?
Oh, yeah. So then they'll at least know what's going on, and they'll know where he's going, what's worked and what hasn't. Yeah.
Good. Cool. Okay, so it sounds like we've got a piece for you to work on.
Yeah.
The other piece was how they interact with Dr. John. Now, do you see a place where you could fit that in here so we're not having to deal with two separate issues entirely, but maybe we can plug them together so you're doing one session with two focuses or foci or whatever?
Yeah, in terms of like what job he has during the day and how they consult him, so he's engaged. So it's about, are you thinking like language, like rather than them being staff and telling him what to do?
Yeah, so maybe you guys could work together, you and your two partners, to come up with some words and some phrases that seem to really resonate with Dr. John, that seem to give him that sense. And you could role model and maybe video. And then,
video the staff trying that language?
Well, maybe you could try the language. And as a role model first, and let them watch you video what they do now, and then watch you, and then show them the language and say, okay, how about we try you guys using some of the language? Let's see what happens.
Okay, and so not only that, they get a chance to then see how it is they can observe. They'd be learning how to observe as well.
Yeah, so if you have that option. Now, if not, you can coach them, but what do you know about using new skills that is going to create some tension and distress?
Well, they're not going to want to be videotaped.
Yeah, and so that opportunity to watch somebody else first sort of takes the pressure off, and getting used to looking at yourself on videotape and doing the comparisons can really help people see things that otherwise they can't see, yeah?
Well, and maybe they could also see that they actually know him better than I do.
Good, cool, lots of opportunities. So how about, before we get together again, you put together what it is exactly you want to do and shoot me an email with the information on it. We'll double check each other, and then you can plan to go ahead and try that out, and let's see how that goes.
Yeah, let's give it a try.
Okay, cool. Congratulations, nice work.
Thank you. Kept me off of giving me more meds.
And notice how that first cut was like, ooh, we gotta, yeah. Very nice. Thank you for the work. That was great. How are you feeling about things?
Good. I feel like I have a way forward, and then also something to answer to the daughter as well. I mean, she's kind, she's understanding, but I feel like I've got something to say we're trying.
Good. And I think if you can maybe figure out, as part of this plan, you're going to be working with staff, but you're also going to connect up with the daughter and have staff. Part of your plan was also having the staff learn how to
use the daughter. So that's the other thing. I need to get a hold of her and see if she's willing to give this a try as well.
So you've got a significant amount of homework here, and I don't should underestimate that.
Okay.
So the first step is what?
Get with the staff. Oh, make my plan. Make my plan.
Good job. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to get with the staff until we talk one more. Like I just double check that you've got all your ducks in a row, because it's always easier to sort of fix something before you step out.
Who does that?
I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah.
Nice
Okay,
thought,
I'll make
nice.
and I'll email you.
Yeah, good. And if you want, you can do it verbally if you want to do a voice thing, however you want to do it. Either voice, if you want to send me a voice message, or an email, or a written document, whatever you want to do. I don't want you to get too carried away. I want you to have the high points on it.
Okay, so not
Who,
like
what, where, when.
entire-
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
No, it's not. You're not being graded on quality of penmanship here.
Okay, so you're not looking for a report with folds and.
I am not. I am not. Okay, I'm going to pause. How does that feel to you, Beth, as a learner?
Good. I felt like so I was trying to think of the things that I normally hear my people say to me. So I felt like if I didn't know what you were asking, I would try to figure it out just to give you some idea, but I didn't feel like I had to give you the right answer per se, which was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I mean, that's kind of the reason I went, with those physical unmet needs, the emotional unmet needs, that idea that I need to take care of pain, I need to take care of the diagnoses first is what we hear a lot from our folks.
Uh-huh.
So it was interesting how I didn't feel like that was wrong, but it was one thing I could do later on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so if I go back to your PAC consultant skill set, what do we want you doing? What skills do we want you, what do we want you to use? Did I have you look at your 6 pieces of the puzzle? Were you working with that?
Yes.
Okay. Did I have you look at the idea of assessing, not assuming?
Yes. Yeah, kept me asking me what it was I was doing, or what was seeing.
Good, good. Did I get you to gather information from multiple sources? Is information gathering from multiple locations sort of encouraged?
Yeah, and the way that we sort of played this out, it was like I'd already been given sort of like the task of going and just interviewing my staff and finding out what they saw too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So are you using it then pretty well?
As a consultant?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking of a larger variety of people, but I probably could, I'm wondering as a consultant, get them to think even broader besides just the staff that's on the unit at that moment.
Yeah, because who else might you have to involve, because there's a little bit of pushback that's like, well, they can't just do one-on-one with Dr. John. Who's going to cover the other 8 patients that they have?
Yeah, it's everybody that's there at all the shifts, but then also family and physicians and all the other people that come into the facility that have some control.
Yeah. Good, good. Were you using, and did you get a chance to do some active listening and responsive kinds of behaviors rather than just knee-jerk, reactive kind of things?
So let me ask for clarification. Well, there you go, case in point. When you're saying as the consultant playing your role, or as the staff member or the administrator that I was playing?
What you would do is, did I get you to actively listen and respond rather than simply react?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a couple of times where you paused me.
Mm-hmm. Are you practicing being responsive and active listening to the person on the other end?
Yeah, you can't help but not. Playing the administrator,
Okay.
I couldn't help but not pause and listen to what you were saying.
Good, good. Did we use some go-with-the-flow strategies like connecting and reflecting and redirecting together? Did we work through some of that?
Yes, especially when I went down a road that you thought might be less fruitful.
Okay, okay. And were we always person-centered in everything we did?
Yeah, you echoed as a consultant a lot of that respectful language about meeting his needs rather than us thinking of ourselves, but that it still was respectful along those lines too, what the staff need.
Okay, how about you? How about my work with you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what do you see? What? Yes, yeah. It was so much so that I was thinking of the staff and him.
Good. Okay. And how about PPA? Do you feel like PPA was respected and used?
Yeah, because my need was to take care of Dr. John and my staff, and so that was how you made your connection. I felt like you were really focused on what it is I had expressed as a need as an administrator.
And did I also then encourage you in any way that you were going to be doing PPA with them?
Yes, and how you coached me through talking with all of their needs that they might express and sort of anticipating what sorts of barriers I might come up against with them.
Okay, good. And focusing on what's possible, recognizing what's not so probable. Did we get you there a little bit? Get you to think about that?
Yeah, definitely. For the most part, I think I was playing a Sapphire administrator. I was really willing to explore, and I didn't jump to the, which we sometimes encounter, well, we've tried everything, and this is just a really tough guy. So I was definitely, you know, so that might have been a little bit easier, but it's still, yeah.
But was I recognizing, was I recognizing your gem state so that I could optimize everything we could do together?
Yeah, so you helped push me a couple of times when you knew I could handle it.
And so when I said, how many options are you going to just ask them, do you want to, or who wants to, versus which of you would like to?
So recognizing their gem states as well, of your choices, which one of you?
Good, excellent. So if you look down this laundry list, and you have that up on your screen of the PAC consultant choose, which of those do you feel like you still want to and need to focus on skill-wise in the next interaction that we have? Where do you want to put some energy? Where do you need to put some energy, do you think? Or do you want to wait and tell me that? Which of those two things can you do it now, or do you want to wait?
I can do it now. Thank you.
Okay.
No, it's definitely, because we've been talking about this and thinking about it, I definitely know that so PPA, for me, getting myself in the right place so I am truly Sapphire when I'm talking to people as a consultant, is probably the number one thing that allows me to go with the flow and assess, not assume.
Okay.
So I have an agenda a lot of times.
Okay, so making sure that you somehow have a system for checking yourself out and checking in before you get started on the consult, and recognizing during the consult whether you're there?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next time, what would be a way that we could maybe work on that a little bit and challenge you a little bit on that, do you think? Do you have any ideas?
One of the things I've seen you do that's been very helpful for me is the, excuse my French, but the oh shit dance.
Okay.
So how is it that, so the example that you gave of the resident was when the resident is covered and he's stepping back out, taking a deep breath, and thinking about the person, their name, who they are, who they were, about them. So maybe I could take that to the what is the challenge? Where do I start them?
Okay, so I'm going to pause you just a second and have you think, how about, would it be worth us reversing roles next time, where I become the less than Sapphire leader or staff member or person that you're going to try to work with as a consultant, and you figure out how you're going to manage, and we'll use the signal, use the timeout signal if it feels like you're slipping and you're struggling or you want help or whatever. But we actually work on that skill of checking yourself and making sure your agenda's not getting in the way of where you want to help the person go.
Yeah, I would really like that. Having that ability to time out in this sort of a situation is great, where I can say, okay, time out. I'm stuck. Here's a perfect example of where I'm getting more diamond.
Okay, good. And the goal of this would it be just, we go through it once, or what do you want to walk away from that session having in your pocket, in your hand?
I would love to, along those lines, I would love to have you sort of like start up, because a lot of our people start off as Sapphire and then they go diamond when they're really struggling. So trying that, and then I would have some key phrases that I could use that pause me so I stay Sapphire, but I'm reflecting back and helping them get more Sapphire.
Excellent. Okay, so the main focus is going to be in this next session really helping you recognize when you're switching, when I can get you to sort of get on that edge, and then what strategies you can use that will help you step back from that edge. And so by the end of the session, we'll have in your pocket some things that you think you can actively use and work on skills-wise.
Yeah, that would be great. Love that.
Okay, cool. Well, it sounds terrific. I think we're on the right track, and it feels like you're well on your way. So you're going to do a good bit of rehearsing. You're going to give me that plan that you have, and we'll get back together.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, everybody. So what you just heard and experienced was that next step forward in becoming a skilled consultant and actually becoming competent. I'm going to open up the lines for the listeners just to see if anybody has any comments or feedback or thoughts. And Corey, if you can see if we can get that to happen without us having a lot of a problem. And then we're going to do one more little thing and call it a day.
I don't have any questions, but
Okay,
I like the way it was laid out, and I think it's helpful to have Beth using that language near the end, kind of making it clear that, I mean, the role play obviously is very clear, but just kind of doing the talk back, I think, is really helpful for people. It helped to clarify some things for me.
Good, good. Anyone else? Who else do we have online?
I'm here, Mary.
Mary, do you have anything you want to say, comment on, give feedback about?
Well, I did like hearing your strategies as to how you were going to try and address this situation. I had a few others, but that's the whole point, is coming up with ideas that can be executed by the staff and the administration, not to mention the family, involving them as well.
Of those things, what was the thing that stood out in your mind as the one that you probably wouldn't have come up with on your own? Was there anything?
Let me think. Well, obviously him being a doctor, the only thing I wanted to have happen is a transition in to more of a quieter time, like he's now finished work, he's home. I was thinking more of those needs being met so that we can start getting quiet time for the end of the day.
And that's a really good idea. The challenge might be the transition to get them there if we immediately try to go to quiet without there being a transition. What might happen?
He would resist that and because he's revved up. So we need to address that first, and then try and transition him to a quieter time.
Great. So yeah. And that was that idea. Is he a early bird or is he a deer?
It sounds to me like he's a deer.
Yeah, I think so too. That was my gut, and that's what I was hoping that, I think we should try that, because that social scene that he goes for, he doesn't just go home and that's it.
Right.
He goes home and then has a different scene, but it is not the same as what he does all day, and he has to have a period of time where he goes out and works in the garden, does something else, hangs out with his wife, and then he gets back on board. So that transitioning thing is really where I would say we don't get that right. You're not going to stay any much quieter with my concern. What do you think about that?
I agree totally. I think that we do have to get him to, like he normally did, wind his day down. I can see doctors sitting and finishing their reports and dictating into a little, you know, like a little recorder like they do. Even that can be done by the staff. Give him a point to do at his end of day. And being in a quieter place, like he's gone to his office at the end of the day and he's wrapping up.
Yeah. So nice. You did a perfect job here. And so I think in conclusion, what I'd say is what I just did with you is also sort of the kind of thing I did with Beth, which is get you to take that one more step back as a consultant and think, yeah, I want to get them to that place, but if I don't really think through where does the problem occur in the quiet place or just getting to the quiet place.
Correct. I think it's getting to the quiet place.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he's struggling with, because that's where the staff really has to change his environment and even change their interaction with him.
Yep, yep. And when we talk about changing interactions, if we could get them to be a little different at that time, could maybe, if we're working with morning, afternoon shifts, could then make a crew and have them switch behavior today, so what might we not see as much of?
The anger and the resistance and the,
yeah,
just his overall demeanor being not happy.
right. And so with one intervention, when we took that step back and we really thought it through and we worked it through, are we spending more time, effort, and energy or less ultimately?
Probably less.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Nice. And it's more focused. Huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for speaking up and speaking up, because that's the part where when you see things differently, it's really important to hear this other point of view.
Certainly. It helps tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything? Well, number one, Beth, thank you for being such a wonderful learner for a consultant.
Thank you. I learned a ton.
Yeah. And thank everybody for participating. And for the coaches, heads up, this is the kind of thing that we want everybody to become skilled at, from the O's that you're getting, the O, and include in that O the uh-ohs, that you realize, oh crap, I just messed up. That's okay, because that's an O with an exclamation mark. And then the ahs. Be aware I had to be comfortable with a little bit of silence every now and then, and choices of, do you want to do this now or do you need a little time to think, for my introvert extrovert? And I also interrupted Beth a little, because all things considered, do you think Beth's an introvert or an extrovert right off the top from what you've seen evidence-wise? Yes, Beth is an extrovert. Beth thinks out loud. She's real good at it. But it also means she likes to talk. And if I want to control the time and the use of time, I need to figure out how to be friendly and intervene. And so as opposed to when I work with Lynn, and if you go back to the very first one that we did, my work with Lynn, there were more silences and I had to wait Lynn out. In this one, what you heard more of is I didn't have to use too many silences, but I had to do some pauses. I had to get Beth to pause every now and then so I could speak and she could listen, because she gets excited, and when she gets excited, she starts running down a road, and it's like, oh, so hang on a second, let me ask you a question. It's much nicer than Beth, wait a minute, I need to tell you something. And it's a way you do it that makes people feel comfortable and not interfered with, but at the same time helps you stay in control of time use. So many, many thanks to Beth for letting me mess with her in all different ways. Thanks to Lee and to Mary for stepping up as well. And coaches and learners, good luck as you move forward. And if you have questions, you have comments, you have thoughts, we're here. You'll have to figure out which way you want to communicate with us. But understand, this journey is yours in combination with us, and we can't help you get where you want to go if you don't participate. So we're looking forward to hearing from you if you need us. And if you want to, feel free, and please do, because that's what's going to make the difference.